Hello everyone and welcome to Who Goes There? Let's talk about retirement. Let's talk about where should I end up? Should I stay in the US? Should I go overseas? I want to take you through my journey, which is not over yet. Some consideration to take into consideration. Let me explain to you what's going on and what I've been seeing. First of all, what is driving the decision? I want to quit the rat race. I want to be in the sun. I want to be in quote unquote paradise. I want to leave the US. Or should you leave the US? How about Florida, North Carolina? Let's go south. Let me tell you a little bit about what I found out. Let's talk about 4 topics. And I'll give you my ultimate decision guide. First of all, let's assume you're about to retire. Right? So the question is, well, where should I go? Can you afford it? So I'm going to talk about people that have money and people that have no money and what you give up one way or the other. So the first thing is this. If you live in the Northeast and you want to go south because everybody wants to be in the warm weather, well, hold that thought. The further south you go, and I mean even further than Florida, and you go in the islands, one thing you will notice or not, and first you need to plan these things very carefully because you're going to give up something one way or the other. And be very wary of those videos that shows, especially coming from a real estate agent, right? They're not going to tell you that this is not good, this is not fast, this is too dangerous. They're going to, obviously they want to sell you something, so they are vested interest. What you should listen to is a channel that is not selling you anything, maybe some views, some likes. So what happens as you go south before we start picking places? So the further south you go, it gets warmer, which is great. As it gets warmer, you will see that the warmer it gets, the less you want to do. That's a fact. It's too hot. And the further south you go, the less the seasons change. And the seasons don't change. I mean, your mind doesn't change. That means that you're not thinking about different things. You're kind of doing the same thing all the time. Very dangerous as you get older. Because the brain, the less you use the brain, it's a muscle, the less you think. So whatever you're going to do, wherever you end up, you have to keep busy. And obviously it's a lot more difficult to keep busy when it's too hot and there's nothing to do. And trust me, I've owned properties in the islands before. It gets hot and there's nothing to do. It's boring after a while. It's extremely boring. So make sure whatever you're going to end up doing, you got to do something, and it cannot just be sitting in front of the ocean. So what do? Well, let's go down from the Northeast where I am in the US, and let's start going down. Let's start North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. First of all, safety. Second, health. Safety, I will tell you, first of all, that if you measure it by up to 100,000, so basically the way this is measured is how many violent deaths there are, 100,000. And once you get below Virginia and Washington, Georgia, not Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, that area tends to have more violence, quote unquote. I'm not saying it's a live or let die. It really there's a lot more things happening in those places. First of all, there's maybe because it's hard, maybe because they don't have as much money, who knows? Maybe it's because why it's more affordable as well. But the point is, it tends to be more violent. That's one thing you need to realize. Okay, we're talking like 52, 25, 30, 45, 52 deaths per 100,000. That's a killing down there, okay? And especially if you go in the low income areas. But the point is, it is warmer, yes, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia. Warmer, but a little bit more spicier than, let's say, Pennsylvania or Florida. Why is that? Well, I think the weather has a lot to do with it, but I also think it has to do with the fact that you have a lot of rural areas. Okay, so if you're going to pick a place, I'm not saying North Carolina is dangerous or South Carolina is dangerous, but it is not as safe, quote unquote. So whatever you're going to pick, you want to make sure, number one, that you have health facilities in the area. How far is the hospital, right? Do you want to drive an hour to a hospital, an hour and a half, 2 hours? You want to be on top of a hospital? Now, obviously, the closer you are to a hospital and the closer you are to roads, the more expensive it gets. So you say, well, let me go real cheap. Let me go in the middle of nowhere. Well, good luck on that. Also, weather. Well, hold on. Yeah, but just because it's warm doesn't mean anything. Warm, especially in those areas, you've got lots of tornadoes. I'm talking South Carolina, North Carolina, lots of tornadoes. lots of pollen. I'm sure you see some videos of other folks, right? They will tell you that the pollen can be very high. Okay, what else do we have down there? Well, you got some very quaint town, but if you're moving in an area, quite frankly, that is worse than you are, that is not good for your mental. You need to move in a quote unquote a better area, not a smaller, safer, where you just wait to die, right? You have to have things to do. And for you to do these things, you tend to be near a metropolitan area. Unless you're just satisfied to be completely on your own. Even if you're retired, you have to do something. Right? If you could do things online, it's even better. But the point is, it tends to be hot, tends to be muggy, tends to be humid. Then you're talking tornadoes, or you're talking lots and lots of pollen, lots of allergy. Okay? All right, so let's further down. Let's go to Florida. Everybody goes to Florida. The problem with Florida, first, it can be very expensive. Boca Raton, Naples, great luxury style, but it's very expensive. Okay? I can afford it. Well, then go. Okay. The trick is, even if you have lots and lots of money, you want to be on top of lots and lots of people? And in Florida, even if you go in expensive areas, you have the big problem in Florida, which is basically that it's underwater and tornadoes again. Now talking hurricane season, right? Do you want to be the one that rebuilds every year, every 2, every 3, every 4 years? I mean, think of it. Forget the cost of insurance. The fact alone that you have to worry every year that some tornado, especially if you live on the coast, Pensacola and all these areas, right, where the hurricane come smack into Fort Myers, right? Lucky maybe it doesn't go across because it stays on land, but all that Gulf Coast, some areas are cheap, but some of them are just purely dilapidated. There's nothing going on, nothing. Little town, little coffee. Don't you want to have something to eat, something of interest, some kind of life? I mean, some people don't mind, but you pay for that. You pay for not having certain things. You pay certain things for having very dilapidated or very poor areas, or maybe even it could be a nice area, but there's nothing going on, right? And you could be close to a hospital, great, but then you're waiting to die. That's not what you want to do. Okay, let's go south. Let's go off grid. Let's go into the islands. Okay, I had a house in San Juan once. The water, it was right on the beach, and in fact, I think some of the videos that I have in that channel, who goes there, there's pictures of it, I think, videos. But the point is that the water, it was near 100 feet from the beach. Water came in over the pool and literally destroyed all the houses. It was insurance, but I had sold at that time anyway. But the point is, that's a problem, right? Because it's dangerous, because you're close to the ocean. So always remember that. Okay, so let's forget being on the ocean. Let's forget we don't have a huge cyclones, and let's forget the cyclones altogether. Because at the end of the day, there you could be well secured inside. It doesn't happen every single year. That kind of cyclone, let's put it this way, as opposed to a hurricane, which you could have anytime, every single year, hitting North Carolina, South Carolina, and also Florida. Well, the point is, which islands now, which we're talking about. Well, you could go to, let's talk about the one that I kind of know and I'm learning with you. Let's think about, let's say Dominican Republic, right? One thing you have to know about the Dominican Republic is that, yes, it's cheaper. The lifestyle is cheaper. Houses are cheaper, and also rents are cheap. We're talking, I don't know, for $1,000 you could live in a very comfortable place. But what are you giving up? Well, you're giving up 24-hour electricity, no internet, no lights, nothing. Doesn't happen all the time, but you have to understand that in Dominican Republic, the government does not spend that much money on infrastructure. Punta Cana is the only area that has been designed, but the government is not spending the money. It's the people like Punta Cana that are paying for everything that is going on down there. So that's a good thing. But still, it can be expensive. So now you're talking $2,000 for. But the point is, the government does not spend any money on the island. The money comes really from either the developers in Punta Cana, but in other areas, you have Las Terrenas, which is very nice, but you're off a little bit off the grid there. You do have electricity that cuts off once in a while, 5-10 minutes, maybe an hour. You have to get used to that. The water, you can't drink the water. This is not Mexico, but you still cannot drink the water. To be comfortable with that. No electricity, no water. So I'll be careful with the water. Then, of course, what you're giving up is access to healthcare facilities. Now, I'm not saying they don't have hospitals. They do have hospitals. A very nice hospital, but again, it's fully developed. Santo Domingo, but it's very busy. right? Which are still very nice. Now, of course, we're going to say, but is it safe? Well, I will tell you, I think the number for Dominican Republic is around 14 deaths per 100,000. It's not France, which is 5, or Italy, which is 3, but it's not Georgia, which is 52, right? So, per death per 100,000. So, in terms of safety, it's all a matter of perspective and numbers as well. So then you say, well, okay, so, but I want to be on the beach. Well, I'll tell you, you've got to stop thinking about paradise whenever you associate the water with paradise, right? Remember, it can get very hot all the time. Plus, don't forget, you're moving by yourself. You're moving with your mate. He or she has to be comfortable with that as well. So you have two people to make the exactly same decision. You could look at Mauritius, for example. Believe it or not, right in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Some people have moved there. They speak English. You give up something that you're used to. As long as you understand what you give up, that it's okay. But you need to realize that you're going to give up something. Well, I don't want to give up anything. Why not stay in the U.S.? But then your standard of living is going to take a hit, obviously. And not so much money-wise, right? Because now you're getting away from the people you know, unless you know people there. I think the best thing for people to move in these places, you have to have people that have been in those places before, unless you're a loner, right? Or you move near family, it makes it a lot easier. Why? Again, because you need that human interaction. There was this very famous survey, I think it was conducted by Harvard. They say, what makes people happy? At the end of the day, what makes people happy? Money? No. Money doesn't make people happy. No. Or a husband? No. That doesn't make children? No. That doesn't make you happy. That's more of a, statistically speaking, I'm not saying you're not happy with your kids or your wife or your husband, right? I'm just saying that statistically speaking, they have shown that what makes people happy is community. So you want to move in an area with a lot of, not like here, very, it's great, but there's no one here. You want to move in an area where there's a sense of community, which the U.S. has lost a lot of that, I believe. So you want to move close to, where there's lots of community. Not that kind of bar I'm talking, even if it's on the beach or whatever, the people you could talk to, you could converse with, even people you don't know, because when you talk to people you don't know, it can be very interesting because it stimulates your brain. You think about stuff, you see different perspective. You don't choose your family. But the point is, you want community, and obviously the larger a place is, the more difficult it is to have a sense of community. That's how it is. That is one thing that I think makes people happy. And it's not what I'm saying, it's just this research by Harvard. I'll probably put that research in the comments, in the description of the video. What else do you want? Well, obviously you don't want to get sick, right? So how not to get sick? Well, you're not going to prevent, you could do exercise, but the point is that you need some sort of facility, you need some kind of a hospital, some sort, but not on top of you, but at least a place where there's an airport. Now, of course, you will find out very quickly that wherever there's an airport, like Punta Cana, then obviously prices go up, traffic goes up, everything goes up because there's an airport right there. So, well, then move in an area where, move in an area where there is no, I don't have anything here, right? Move in an area where there is no airport, but then you're asking for trouble because, less people, so no need for big hospitals, so you have to drive to hospitals. And what I mean by hospitals, doctors is one thing, dentists is another thing, but let's say you have a heart condition or something, right? You don't want to have to drive 5 hours to get there. But yet, if hospitals nearby, prices go up automatically. So you can't win them all. What else do you want to do? Well, you want to make sure the place is safe as well. And Dominican Republic depends where you go, and depends, you got to be smart about things. You have to be careful, but there's a certain area, there's Las Terrenas is good, Punta Cana is not too bad, Puerto Plata, but you have to really make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Saint-Martin, right? Half French, half Dutch. I've lived there. It's small though. It's 40,000 people. The entire island, which is great, but nothing much going on. It's very quick. Apart from the casino and the eating, there's no, and that's something also that you want some sort of a history, right? A place like Saint-Martin doesn't have history, unfortunately. But that gets you can't stay in the sun more than 30 minutes anyway. So you got to be aware of that. So that's why a place like Dominican Republic is large, it's big. Christopher Columbus used to go there all the time. Right, so it's a very comfortable place to be because there's a history. People are more interesting, right? The French islands, unfortunately, in the Caribbean, are expensive because it's artificially maintained by the government. Spends lots of money over there. Lots of people working for the government, so prices tend to be more expensive. And frankly, it's not very stable, I would say. I mean, these are big general comments, so you got to be very careful. You have to do your own due diligence. And the way I would do is I would not quote unquote move. I would try it. Right? I wouldn't buy anything, because buying, first of all, I had a house in San Juan. It's a lot of work. You say, well, you buy, and if you don't like it, you could rent it. Let me tell you, how are you going to rent it? How are you going to find the people? I mean, I used to use Verbo, VRBO, and Home something, I think it was called, and even Airbnb, but that's work, right? You got to get the people, you got to bring them in, you got to hire someone to fix it. Who's going to fix it? You're in over there and they're over here. It's not, then pay someone to do it, but that's going to cost you. You're going to rent in somewhere where someone has to take an airport, like if you're in Punta Cana. I mean, the place that I used to have in San Juan, maybe it was rented 50% of the time, 60%. But it was, each time I'd go down there, you had to fix it, get the people to paint. And unless you do it yourself, good luck. Right? You got to find somebody that's able to manage a property, but they'll take another 10% for you. But you're retired, right? You want to worry about that? You want to worry about, and I will tell you, whenever you're near the ocean, good luck. The salt will eat everything. You have to constantly repaint. I mean, having said that, it could be pleasurable, because if you're working and somebody's managing and you have somebody good that you could find, but you have to find the right people. I found somebody after a while, but originally people weren't really reliable. People go down there, right? They say, okay, where's my place? Wait, do I have a key? Do I get in? Right? If they don't like it, they tell you it wasn't clean, it was dirty. So, I mean, it's work. I mean, it's like rentals. It's like having a rentals. So you got to make sure about that as well. But the point is, you don't need to do that. You just go and rent, and then you move on to some other place, and you don't like it, you move on somewhere until you find the right spot. But you will find, the question is this, you're going to find what you are missing when you're down there, not here. Okay? So we don't buy anything by watching a YouTube video and then sight unseen. You do not do that. Why? You don't know what's going on until you get there. You don't. What about the ocean, the people, the sun? Come on. You're not 10 years old, right? You need to realize it's a little bit more complicated than that, right? If conjunction doesn't work, you have to replace it. Who needs the headache? So the bottom line is this. Decide when it's time for you to retire, right? At 62 years old. If you make enough, I think 2,000 should be able to, not in the US, you have to go down in the island with 2,000. If you're able to maximize your retirement, you will get about 30 at 62, and if you wait until 65, around $4,100. Having said that, remember one thing very important. Once you collect that money, but that's not a big deal, you also need to start worrying and thinking about your health care. So we're talking Medicare, and you have to pay Medicare. From what I've seen, I think it should be around, $300 to $300, depending how much you made. 2 years before you retire, that's how they decide how much to charge you. But Medicare is just in case you go to the hospital, but you have a 20% copayment. So you need to get an additional insurance to cover that. So by the time you're done with the Medicare Part B, the additional amount of money that you need to pay in order for you to be covered 100%. And I don't even think that includes dental and eyes either. So we're talking maybe $400 or $500 a month just for that. If you want to retire in those islands, Dominican Republic, then you have to buy insurance over there. But don't wait until you're 67 to buy. It's going to be too expensive. You have to buy it before you get there. So you have a bunch of things to do, to think, which I'm going through the same process, before you get there. In fact, you should go down there right now, start paying insurance so that when you get there, it's cheap. But do I need that insurance here and there? Do you need both? Things happen. Till you decide exactly what you want to do, then. Now, in addition to that, the money that you're going to get from Social Security. If you happen to work, which I think Milton Friedman said that this was a bit ridiculous because you're retiring and yet you're being taxed on it. When you earn that money, you also need to realize that money needs to be paid up. I mean, you can't make, I think the most you can make is $20,000 on top of that. If you make more than that, so you really have to be retired. You can't retire and work, you can still collect Social Security, not right away. But the problem is, well, I'll wait. Well, be careful. Because I'm a finance guy, and I will tell you that I think there's enough money for Social Security until 2034. After that, unless these guys do something, 20% down. So some people say, well, collect the money now, and then later on you're going to get them. I mean, collect your money now, work, you don't collect, and that money will be owed to you later on. But then it's not that easy to collect that money, quite frankly. You don't lose it, but then you have to kind of retroactively, and if you're down there in the sun, good luck. The point is, the more prepared you are, financially, one, health-wise, two, where you're going to get help. And then three, what is it that you're giving up? You are going to give up something. You're going to give up family, you're going to give up human interaction, you're going to give up something. And more importantly, what are you going to do when you're down there? Well, it's going to be great. We're going to sit, have a coffee in the ocean. How often are you going to do this? Every day? That gets boring very quickly. And if you're able to retire down there, that means that you made enough money, and therefore your brain has been working for a while, and then you cannot just switch off like that. This depression sets in after a while. So overall, this is what you need to do, or think about doing. One, pick the place, try the place, prepare for the place, prepare financially. But when I mean financially, you know how much money you have and how much you could afford. When I'm talking about taxes wise and collected wise, the cost of healthcare, do you really need it on both sides, wherever you're going to go? The tax consequences, that's also very important. But more importantly, you're going to have to decide what is it that you're willing to give up. Do you want to give up quote-unquote security? Do you want to give up good health care? You want to give up family? You have to decide what you're willing. You're going to give up something. It's not just positive. You go to the Dominican Republic, you're going to give up on electricity 24/7. You're going to have to be careful about the water as well. You don't buy property sight unseen. And of course, if you go in those places, let me tell you, you got to be careful who you send your money to. This is not the US. Okay? So going after these people, if you go and give money, you don't have a property, good luck. You have to be informed. So stick to this channel. I'm going to be doing a bunch of different kind of videos about this, depending, how much views I get, but also about resorts that I'm going to be visiting and places I'm going to be visiting from my point of view. So hopefully it helps you kind of decide.